Hi, we're Shannon and Jerry Arner.
And our dog, Betty White.
Your hosts of the Arner Adventures podcast.
Could we have named it something more creative? Probably. But it's the name of our blog. It's our last name. We're on an adventure. Yada, yada, yada. After owning our own business, working 24/7.
And don't forget a mental breakdown in between.
We made a lifestyle change and decided to make the most out of life.
We sold our house, most of our belongings, downsized, and moved to the coast.
We live life minimally, but fully.
We live each day as an adventure.
This show will help you learn how to live life more fully, with more intention, by experiencing more, and with less stuff.
We'll talk about our own experiences, interview others who have much to share by creating a spark in our lives.
Some days we'll share real-life ongoings of what we're going through, and others will talk about our favorite flavor of waffle.
Come join our adventure.
It's the Arner Adventures Podcast. Hello, everyone. I'm Jerry.
And I'm Shannon.
Our gal, Betty White, is with us, of course, and we are back for episode 56 of the Arner Adventures Podcast.
How is 2023 going for you all so far? Wow! I just can't believe it's a new year. Hopefully, you were happy with the way that the first week of the year went.
Yeah. Today, we are back with a Spark in Our Lives episode. We think that this guest will be a great one to kick off our series for the new year.
We want to take a moment to ask that you please hit that subscribe button in the platform you're listening to us on. And while you're at it, why don't you go ahead and be a sport and give us a 5-star review or rating? That would be an excellent, positive way to go into the new year, don't you think?
I think. But seriously, we would greatly appreciate it.
Well, today's guest is Alise Saunders of Tales from an Untamed Soul. Her story is going outside of the box to live a life of travel, free from the constraints of what society thinks is normal. We don't like that.
No, not at all.
We just respected her journey and this conversation so much and think that you will too.
Are you ready to get to Alise?
I am ready.
Let's go ahead.
Well, we are so excited about today's guest. Our guest, alongside her husband, are travel bloggers. You can find their blog at talesfromanuntamedsoul.com. I love that name, don't you?
Yeah, it's neat. Yeah.
Our guest is Alise Saunders. Alise and her husband's story aligns so closely with ours. We were really intrigued by their journey surrounding selling their belongings, going out on the road, being travel bloggers, 365 days a year, and staying in Airbnbs. Since it aligns with our story so closely, we wanted to hear more. Their story differs in that they're digital nomads where we stay in one place. We cannot wait to hear more about that. And, Alise and her husband, Greg, want to help individuals create a life that they don't want or need a vacation from. Alise, thank you so much for being here.
Oh my gosh, thank you both so much for having me. I'm really excited to have this conversation.
Yay, we are too. Where are you currently?
So we are currently in Cedar City, Utah. So we typically stay a month in each location. So we have a couple more weeks here in Cedar City, and then we're going to spend a month in Moab, Utah. So
Wow.
I know it's a dream come true just to be doing all the different parks and hikes and see all the sights. Utah is absolutely amazing.
Yeah,
Huh.
I've been to Salt Lake, but nowhere else. But even Salt Lake City was absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah.
It's like you see it on TV and online, and you're like, well, it can't look like that. No, it does.
Exactly.
I cannot wait to dig more into the whole story. Jerry and I have been talking about it before recording, as soon as we read and learned about you and your husband, because it is so closely aligned with us. And we love when we have someone on the podcast who gets it, right?
Oh, yeah. This is as close to what we're doing, I think, as anybody we've had.
Yeah.
this is
Especially
really
that
neat.
it's a couple doing it too.
Yeah,
So we
yeah.
love that.
Uh-huh.
Well, Alise, tell us, how your journey got started. I really want to know, because people ask us the same thing. Were you both on board? Did one person go, oh, okay, I have this idea, and had to convince the other person? But how did the whole journey start of you making the decision to sell your belongings and travel?
Basically, I've hardcore been working on myself, healing some significant traumas in my life. And as a process of healing trauma, You become way open to a lot of different things. And I was in that space and starting to pay attention to how my body was feeling with everything that I was doing. And while I had created this successful bookkeeping company and I was finally loving being out of corporate America and having my own schedule, I became distinctly aware that I was dying a slow and painful death of repetition and routine. Sat in the same place on the couch every day, like my car knew how to get everywhere it needed to go. Like I didn't even have to pay attention. I was not engaged in my life. And I thought, well, this is not healthy. This doesn't work for me. What do I need? And so in soul searching, it was like, okay, I need to be exposed to constant change. That in itself sounds terrible, but it was something that I felt I really needed to be my best self. So that was really the onset that kind of got the wheels rolling that led up to what we're doing now, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think it makes more sense than we can even tell you. When I was reading about how you can, you feel it in your body. It's not just your mind. Like you've decided this, you feel it in your body. I mean, it's really, I think it's like, it's pain. I mean, you can have aches and you go, oh, what's wrong with my back, or I'm always tight or whatever. And it's really the effect that stress and past trauma and all that has on your physical self. So yes, we completely get that. Did you one day say, hey, Greg, we need to do this? Well, was it just literally it happened very quickly, or what was that process like?
Well, it was an evolution where we started to, because I didn't really know. My body was like, you need something else, but I'm like, I don't know what that is. And so we started to play this game where we would go into this, mental and emotional playground where we said nothing is off limits. If there were no money limits, if there was no location limits, if there were no limits at all, what would we be doing? Where would we go? What would that look like? How would it feel? And so every day when he would come home from work, we would spend a couple minutes talking about that. Where would we go today? What would we be doing? What would we be seeing? Who would we be meeting? And, when you take away all the limits, you take away all the excuses, you take away all of the technicality that your mind immediately goes to of why that won't work, right? And so we just spent a lot of time in this playscape imagining what we would be doing. And a lot of it came back to where we would be doing it. And that is, how the first cog of the wheel, if you will, started to come into focus of we have always loved to travel. But in whatever this next step was, we realized then that travel was going to be a significant portion, because every time that we were in the playscape, we were in Greece, we were in California on a beach, we were in Costa Rica, we were somewhere having the most amazing time. So that's travel came to be the first component of what we now live.
This episode is brought to you by Cozy Earth.
Sleep is super important to us, as it should be for you too.
You spend a third of your life in bed. Why not invest in making it a safe, non-toxic place?
Our top pick for sustainable, eco-friendly sheets, and Oprah's favorite too, by the way.
Enough said.
Are Cozy Earth bamboo sheets.
The bamboo weaving prevents the skin from becoming sweaty, yuck, maintaining the perfect temperature and keeping you comfortable while you sleep. We love our sheets.
Oh my goodness. Well, anyway, head on over to arnerventures.com/Cozy Earth to grab our code to save 40% on your Cozy Earth purchase.
40%? There's no better discount code than that, folks. Even the Cozy Earth sales aren't giving you 40% off. I'm not even sure that Oprah gets this kind of a discount code. It's good for anything site-wide on Cozy Earth.
That is arnerventures.com/Cozy Earth to grab that link and code. It's also in the show notes.
Now back to the show. How did it feel getting rid of your stuff?
Hard. Greg, my husband, is very attached to belongings. It's hard for him to distinguish the belonging from the memory or the person that gave it to him. And we had downsized multiple times, right? There's many times I've looked at him and said, I have a crazy idea. Let's downsize. Let's downsize again. Let's downsize again, right?
Yeah.
So for me, my attachment is not the same. So it was extraordinarily painful each time that we downsized. And obviously, when you go from a house into your car with your belongings, that was different. Even for me. So extraordinarily painful for him. But even the day that I walked into my closet and I decided the way that I was going to do it is I was going to pick what I was going to take, period.
Yep.
And everything else was being donated.
Yeah.
And when I picked my few items that went into the bag and I sat back and went, look at everything that I'm not ever going to see this again, and that was a moment that even though I don't have a strong attachment to belongings, that was still really challenging for my mind to wrap itself around. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. I feel really excited that we've downsized, and for me, it was very easy, very easy. I think for you, Jerry, it was a little bit more difficult.
Yeah. I think we might be on a sort of similar in our relationship, the way we are is the way you are too. I think it was harder for me too. I think I was used to holding on to things, and maybe it's hard to separate the memory from the actual thing.
Yeah. And I think, we did not downsize to, okay, we're going to be completely remote in our car. And, we talked to some other people who have said, okay, I went down to 3 suitcases. That was it.
Right.
That is, I'm just enthralled by it. I think, wow, that must be so free. I don't know. I feel a little refreshing now thinking about it, but it's also like, wow, okay, I'm looking around now and I feel like we live really, minimally downsized a lot. Of this, what would I downsize? And we do declutter a ton once a month. We go through, we just did it a couple of days ago where I was like, okay, we got to go through this and get rid of this stuff again. Yeah. And it does feel so great. But to say, okay, I'm going to be remote travel is wonderful until you actually take your stuff and really downsize it,
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. But for me, I think eventually I came around where I realized, I could go on without that stuff. I don't know if it was the same for him, but it was just took a little more time, I think, basically for me.
Yeah. And I think for us too, the things that had the memory attached to it, we were like, who could benefit from this and really love this the way that we do, like some of your childhood things I'm thinking about.
Well, yeah, sure. Yeah. And then when you do downsize, a lot of the stuff that kind of kept the really, I don't know, the sentimental things or the things of value, maybe all the stuff kept that stuff packed away back in the corner or in the attic and now that stuff that had a lot of memory and sentimental value is more out in the forefront.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think what's really great about you, and I don't know if this is a pro, I'm thinking it's a good thing and that would have been easier, but you can correct me if I'm wrong. I would think, well, okay, the more I get rid of, the more free I can be with traveling and the more I can go. I would think that's a win, but what's your mindset about that?
My mindset is that letting it all go is very freeing. I realized in the transition of getting ready to get on the road, just how much, specifically for me, but I think it's true for a lot of people that I've spoken with, is that the things, the physical things in my world made me feel full inside. And when I stripped that down and it was literally just me, it's like, okay, now I have an opportunity to make myself full with things that really matter.
Yeah.
And you are absolutely right. Of course, now that I am unattached, I absolutely can do more travel. We're seriously investigating international travel for 2023.
Yeah.
And the mindset, we're already looking at the few things that we have and paring that down from a carload into a single suitcase for each of us, one backpack, and we each have a cat. So
I know. I was going to say, okay, what happens with the cats?
travel with us, and they're definitely coming with us.
Okay.
I don't think that when we got on the road that I would have been able to pare it immediately down to a single suitcase. I'm just not sure that even me, with my lack of attachment, that I would have been in that mental space that I felt that I could let go of what's in the car. But having been on the road now as long as we have, I can still look at things and I'm like, why did I think I needed this? Why did I, like in the moment when we were getting on the road, I'm like, I have to have this. This is urgent and imperative, and I can't do this without this, and now I'm just like, why did I think that way,
Yeah.
And so now I feel like, even like you were saying, Jerry, my husband is completely on board with that. And it comes down to, what do you want more? Do you want the thing, or do you want to go to Greece? You know what? I want to go to Greece. Bye to the things, right? Because I don't want to be lugging that stuff. It's going to be enough with, the cats and all the stuff on trains, planes, automobiles. So it's what do you want more? What is your heart's desire? And you can always pick it up, buy it later and then donate it later again, so it's like, we're never going to be able to get what we need.
This episode is brought to you by Southern Oak Artisan.
Southern Oak Artisan makes 100% natural soy candles that are not only aesthetically pleasing, but are safe to breathe, since they are made with non-toxic ingredients, and they're not overwhelming like other candles you may be used to.
Between morning brew, lemon bake, lavender, there's just so many scents to choose from.
Southern Oak Artisan 100% natural soy candles are handmade in our home state here in North Carolina, but lucky you, they ship all over the U.S.
Yes, lucky indeed. Head over to arneradventures.com/Southern Oak Artisan, where you can grab our discount code and link to save on your soy candle purchase.
That's arneradventures.com/Southern Oak Artisan. It's also in the show notes.
And now back to the show. You work remotely, obviously, as you travel. And I'm wondering, I know that, you said earlier that you came from the corporate world and, being in that world, and is there anything that you miss about that lifestyle of, it sounds like no, because it was the same every day, but is there anything about that you miss? Or I always like to paint, no matter whose life it is, it's never sunshine and rainbows. Like, it's never perfect.
Right.
So, do you ever say, oh gosh, like, I just wish I could just have, a 9-to-5 job or whatever it is, like, or do you take care of that yourself? Or I just want to know about the work part of it for you, like good, bad, ugly.
No, I don't miss it. There's not a single day that I have said, oh, how I wish I could go back. Oh my God, no. And honestly, with the trauma healing that I've done in the last few years, I'm not that person anymore. I am a completely different person. I'll meet up, I'll be in a city that one of my former coworkers was in. And so like, we'll meet up and they're like, I don't even know who you are. Like, I don't recognize her. The girl that I knew would never do what you're doing, would never say the things that you're saying. And that always makes me go, yes, I'm on the right road. But, the other thing is that I feel like society teaches us to hold on to things, hold on to people that have died, hold on to, people that we once knew in a job or in a friendship that no longer serves us, hold on to accumulating things, right? And so I feel like society teaches us to hold on to that. But, what I think is more beneficial is to use that energy to look forward and to create the future. This past is gone. That version of me is gone, right? And so I want to focus all of my energy on creating the next thing, the next amazing version of myself, the next amazing adventure. So I try not to look back. Honestly.
I love that.
I do too.
I'm even so extreme that sometimes I can't. I'm like when we moved and left, some people will want, like you just said, I thought you were going to go a different way with it. When you said you're in a city where a coworker is, I thought you were going to say, and I just stay away. Like I almost do. I'm almost saying, I can't go back there. I can't go back to that. It reminds me of just how I yearned for something different. And I don't even like to think about that stuff. I was just having that conversation with someone recently, and they were talking about where we were and, oh, but you were involved in this and this. I'm like, you know what? Let's just stop talking about it. I can't even, and I don't have regrets, most definitely, but do you feel that way?
Oh yeah. At times I find that relatable too.
Yeah.
Sometimes people from, maybe people I worked with in other jobs, and I think maybe I ought to. They did try to contact me once. I should contact back. And I think it just would serve no purpose. Now, I do have my childhood friends that you always have through life that you want to continue talking to. But then there's people along the way that just like, oh, no, I don't. Because they're going to complain about things that I don't want to. I've heard so much before, and I don't want to experience it again,
Yeah.
Yeah.
My mom always says that life is, like a book. And that chapter is done and you just move forward. You're not constantly going back and rereading the chapter. Right. I mean, why would you do that? You experienced it. It's done. And I believe people are like that. Now I'm extreme. I'm very quick to cut people off, but in the sense of not in that world, but I do believe that people come in and out of your life.
Exactly.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Shannon, I do want to make a clarification. Because, from a trauma healing standpoint, I do believe, my personal belief is that you do have to go back and you do have to feel the emotion that you stored in order to feel, heal, and release and finally let that go. I don't believe that trauma healing, permanent trauma healing, occurs by just saying, okay, that was in the past. It's done. It's over. I'm moving forward. If that was true, or at least for me, oh my gosh, I'd be a guru on a mountain somewhere by now. But, I became ill in my career because I believed that, because I didn't do the work that I'm doing now, which is to go back and look at that trauma, feel the emotion that I was feeling in that moment of that trauma so that it can finally exit my body. And, so I just want to make that clarification because I don't want people to think that, okay, something happened. That was terrible. I'm just going to move on and everything is going to be fine. It'll come back in an illness later.
100%. And Jerry and I we should have also been explicit that we do visit these issues in therapy. We address them that way. Right. But there's just some things I just don't, there's no point in me going and seeing somebody that I don't really, connect with anymore. But yes, dealing with the issues, you can't sweep them under the rug. We completely believe in that.
I think when you're younger too, that can be you're probably more prone to want to do that. Just stuff things down and move forward.
Yeah.
And maybe with maturity, you realize you have to address things.
Right. I mean, it's what we're taught in life and society. I'd venture to say that, at least 75% of society is not taught how to actually feel the emotion. There's so many messages from every aspect in our society that teaches us, oh, you should stuff that. Like crying at work, how taboo is that? And oh my gosh, I was even one of those bosses at one point that I'm like, you need to get it together. This is a workplace. You can't be doing that. I would so go back and do that differently and wrap my arms around that hurting employee of mine and allow that person that space to express that emotion. So it's not taught. And it's something that has been a big part of my own healing journey, is to learn how to feel those emotions so that I can let them out and not store them. But and I learned that from my mom, because that's what my mom was taught. And that's what my grandma was taught. And then I taught my son that, and so even now my son is learning to feel his emotions. And so, that's absolutely huge. But most people only are taught from every aspect of society to stuff that, to not express it and not talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it might be a little worse for men sometimes too, especially in our culture, it's especially if you're of a certain age and grew up in a certain era, if you grew up like pre-Oprah where you didn't talk about things.
Yeah.
But it's like, you were just kind of taught to, just walk it off, or you're just hungry, or something.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Don't address it.
What practices do you have now to check in with your body, your healing, your emotions? Do you have a daily thing that you do, or can you just kind of recognize when things are uneasy?
Because all of the behaviors are so entrenched in my body, my mind, my emotions, my subconscious, it is still hard for me to say that like I'm 100% aligned and I never have to think about it. You know what I'm saying? That I just immediately recognize it. Sometimes I do, but usually if I immediately recognize it, it's because like a freight train went through the room and my body's like, we're going to make sure that you hear us right now. Right. So I do try to take the time to check in. Right. So it's a practice. I practice practicing to check in with my body, to see, am I holding the shoulder up too tight? Am I feeling tension in my neck? Are my, gut muscles like clenched? I constantly, especially when I'm working, because I get so focused on the work, that my body can start doing these weird things that, like I'm like got my shoulders all clenched up around my neck or something. I'm like, when did that even happen? And so I'm constantly having to stop and evaluate that. But the other one is intention, setting the intention on a regular basis that this is what I want. I want to have this connection with my body. I want to listen to it. And that the intention is that to the best of my ability, I don't want to store any more emotion, right? So, I had a situation yesterday where I was at Bryce National Park, so excited to go, right? I was so excited. Oh my gosh, this was such a dream come true. And I'm there and I'm trying to get parking, and I had just gotten there. And, my belief is that the universe helps me. The universe is always working for me. And sometimes it's not always in a happy, pleasant way. Sometimes it's to help me release stored emotion. And while that was not on my agenda for yesterday, apparently the universe felt otherwise, because there was a parking attendant who was, trying to help people get parking and direct people. So I thought I saw a couple who was walking to their car and they were going to back out and I was going to take the space. I never saw them talk, the couple and the parking attendant, to where he would know that they weren't leaving. So I thought they were leaving. And so he's motioning to me, come on, come forward. And I'm pointing like, hey, I'm going to take their spot. Well, this just set him off. He's flailing his arms and screaming at me. And the mannerism, I know, right? So we triggered each other. And so, his mannerisms were just like my stepfather, who was very violent in my childhood. And I have been working on healing a lot of that stored emotion from my childhood. And so, I pull up next to him, I roll down my window, and I was like, what's going on? And he was like, they're not leaving. Like, he's screaming at me. And I was like, okay, like I didn't know that they weren't leaving, and so I drive on to try and find another parking spot. Here it comes, like an absolute wave of an ocean, uncontrollable sobbing, and completely took me off guard. And so, in order to honor that, and to not store that, I drove as quickly and safely as I could to a parking space and just sobbed uncontrollably for 45 minutes. And I am so grateful to that man for helping me to release that emotion that, clearly
that was still in there.
Yeah, that hadn't happened. If he hadn't had just the perfect mannerisms or whatever, I wouldn't have been triggered, because that's the thing, right? You know that you've been triggered when the situation and your response don't match.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
yeah.
If I had not had stored emotion, I would have gone, oh my gosh, I feel so bad. That guy must be having like a really bad day, and then like gone on, right? Like, I wouldn't have given it another thought.
Yeah.
But I knew I was triggered because my reaction to what happened was off the scale. I was having this huge wave of emotion. And, I was like, well, here I am. This was not, on my itinerary, but in the spirit of going with the flow of life, here I am. This is what I feel. I'm going to pull over and I'm going to sit here until it's done.
This episode is brought to you by Danadan.
If you're a longtime listener, you've probably heard us tell you before that about 2 to 3 CBD brands reach out to us every week. It wasn't until we started digging into the research that we learned CBD isn't always CBD, and they're not all the same.
Danadan Hempworks makes organic hemp flower infusions. Danadan's products support our daily routine by helping to manage daily stress, promote healthy sleep, provide caffeine-free energy, and recover from activity-related stiffness and soreness.
They also have CBD hemp flower infusion specifically designed for pets, which is great for Betty White. She uses it every day.
Head over to arnerventures.com/Danadan-Hempworks to grab our amazing discount code and link.
That's arnerventures.com/Danadan-or-Hempworks. It's also in the show notes.
Now, back to the show.
I'm not going to rush it. I'm not going to worry if somebody sees me, which somebody actually did. And it was so sweet. I get a tap on my window. Somebody had pulled in next to me. He was like, are you okay? I was like, yeah, I'm really good. And he's like, well, we're going to sit here for 10 minutes. If you need us, just, come over and let us know. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's beautiful when an angel appears and holds space for you. I didn't need them to hold space for me, but it was so beautiful that they did, to know that I had that high level energy right next to me.
Yeah.
But I mean, just moments like that have continued to be a part of the journey of being on the road and honoring what I'm feeling, and the intention of not wanting to create any more dis-ease in my body.
I think your outlook on emotional health, mental health, all of that is so refreshing. It's like all the things you're saying, I'm like, yeah, I completely agree. I just don't think I'm practicing them the way I should. And so like with the way that you reacted to him, I often will find that my reaction does not match, what has just happened.
Right.
And I don't think I let it come through enough. I'll just tell you really quickly. I went into a store that also serves as like a FedEx drop off here locally. And I needed a FedEx drop off. So I go in and I'm like, I look at the guy at the counter. I go, FedEx drop off? Like just thinking he's going to point me in the direction. And he does. And then I hear him under his breath say, if you'd have just read the sign. Well, I lost it. Like I lost it. Yelled in the store, like completely, I know I frightened the person behind me. I just lost it.
I've been there. Yeah.
And then a lady who works at the store brings me over and she's like, I'll help you over here. And I was like, I cannot believe he, and I just go on and on. I get in the car and I message Jerry. And as I'm saying it, thinking I'm going to say, can you believe that? I go, wow, like my reaction to that was really the way I acted in the store went way. I mean, what am I still mad about what he did? Yes. Should I be? No. But I still can't believe it happened. But my reaction to it, obviously, and then I was telling my mom the next day, and she said, well, it sounds like you have something else going on there. And I was like, oh, yeah. And then I thought about all the things I'd been dealing with that I hadn't addressed. And he was just the cattle. It was just the breaking point of some other things.
Exactly.
But yeah. I feel like the way you handled that was so healthy and letting just all of that flow. And I could have gone to the car and cried exactly the way you did. Yeah. And I didn't. I put it in anger and I put it in something that was so negative.
It's like you've set some systems in place for yourself to really make a good outlet for something that maybe couldn't have been or wouldn't have been before, you know.
Yeah.
I really try not to project, right? Because then I'm giving stored emotion to that person.
Yes.
I don't know how to process it properly, right? It's not okay for me to project what I'm feeling onto someone else. And I will say too, one of the big things is that, especially for me, I tend to go to sadness rather than go to anger. I am still in my process of healing, learning that anger is safe and that it is okay to be angry. And so my natural process, even when I'm angry, is to go to sadness, because sadness is okay. Sadness is allowed by society for women, right? But society has a lot of interesting beliefs about anger and expressing that. In that moment, I probably had anger within me from my childhood that needs to come out. But because I'm still grappling with what that looks like and how to express that, to feel safe expressing it and to allow myself to express it, then my body is like, okay, we got to get this stuff out. So we're going to take her to sadness. She's going to have all of these tears. And at least we're going to chip away at some of this stored emotion, right? So I will say that sadness tends to be the go-to, I think, for a lot of people instead of being angry.
Yeah.
I think that's the way for me too. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
It's interesting how we go, all of us just go a certain way, where some people go to humor and they try to make everything funny, you know, instead of, it is interesting that you've pointed that out.
Yeah. I do use that as a diversion very often.
Yeah.
Go for the joke.
Is a defense mechanism, right? Your body.
Yeah. Definitely.
Defense mechanisms of, I don't want to feel that. I don't want to deal with that. So this is what we're going to do instead. You know? And some people have so much stored emotion that the moment that they're triggered, they go straight to anger and they just blow up. They blow up on everybody. They, you know, it's like an intoxicated person. They say the most horrible, terrible things. You know, so it all just depends on your relationship with your body, the space of healing that you're in, how much stored emotion that you have, the defense mechanisms that your body has put in place to survive. Right.
Yeah. That's what with, you know, comedians too, a lot of times are a little bit neurotic and known to be. And they're the funny was obviously developed as a defense mechanism.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like it's like that Smokey Robinson line, the tears of a clown when there's no one else around, you know.
Going to something a little lighter, how do you maintain a good work-life balance?
I'm not sure that I do. Here's what I mean about that is, you know, I try my best to optimize my efficiency. And what I mean by that is, what does my body feel like doing today? rather than having this list. I mean, sure, we all have things we absolutely have to get done today. We've got a deadline or whatever. But, when I wake up in the morning and I'm thinking about, oh my gosh, I had this great idea for this blog post and blah, blah, blah. That's the moment to like sit down and seize that creative energy, right?
Yeah.
But that means that there's something else that's probably, not getting done or whatever. And so it's just this constant balancing act of listening to what my heart's desire is to do that day, what my bookkeeping client needs are in that day, or, what my heart is saying, oh my gosh, it's beautiful weather outside. Let's get out and hike, or let's go somewhere. Or sometimes it's, what? Greg and I need to unplug from the world and have some adult time, know, and have that romance and, just continue to build that connection that is our desire of being able to spend this time together. So, part of me still grapples with terms like I'm behind. I've said that a couple times in recent days, and I'm trying to figure out how to better articulate that, because what is the standard of behind? What does that really mean to me in my life? I'm my own boss. So, who am I behind to exactly? I'm behind
oh my gosh.
belief in my brain that says, we started traveling the West Coast in January. I got sick, really sick for a couple months. And then I haven't done a destination guide since last year. Been to all of these cities. And so, trying not to let myself feel stressed about this imagined backup of things that I have to do. Because the thing is that I'm living. I am living. I am in Bryce. I am in Zion. I am hiking, and Greg and I are more connected than we ever have been. And I have bookkeeping clients that are so excited about the relationship and the product that I have with them. And so, I have to look at that and say, okay, my mental block or belief that these destination guides have to get done because we've been to these places and we have to get them on the website. What relationship do I have with that? Do I believe that because it is an old behavior pattern? Yes, I do. That's that corporate, everything has to be done now, right? And so it's constantly this balancing act to balance everything in my life and evaluate those beliefs that don't serve me. Because thinking that I'm behind and thinking that I have this backup, that does not serve me. That does not serve my higher purpose, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I do the same thing. Gosh, this is so enlightening. There is someone who's listening and they are thinking, gosh, I would love to, not only downsize, but live this adventure. Like they have this desire to go on these adventures and live remotely, travel to these wonderful places. What top tips do you have? I mean, I know we're going to get to the fact that you offer a lot of resources on your website, but is there just like a couple things that you're like, okay, make sure this, or you need to have this in order? I mean, what kinds of things are you thinking about that?
The thing that I usually tell people is don't feel like it has to be all or nothing. You can go and work remotely for a month and then come back to your life. You can go every week somewhere and then come back. You don't have to go all in like we are. The biggest thing is to get in touch with your heart's desire. What does your heart really want? What makes your soul sing? What creates happiness and joy in your life? And then try to do that. The other thing that I would say is don't get caught up in the minutia and the technicalities of how am I going to make that work? Because if I had gotten caught up in that, we would not be here. We would not doing this, right?
Yeah.
And so with the belief that I trust myself, I'm going to encounter challenges, but I trust myself to be able to figure them out. And that I think is one of the biggest things is, just knowing that no matter what comes up, you're resilient, you're strong, you're smart. You're going to be able to figure it out if it's something that you really want to do. And then the other thing I would say is look at what empowers you. Try to stay away from the thoughts of, I can't, that's crazy, people will think that I'm nuts, all of those things. Just try to think of and feel in your body that joy of, sitting on a beach in Costa Rica, or, going to Yosemite, or photographing animals in Yellowstone. Feel in your body what that's going to feel like and hold on to that joy. It will carry you a very long way.
Yeah.
That's
I 100% agree.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Wow. So speaking of the resources and the tips that you have on your website, Tales from an Untamed Soul, again, I love the name of that. You have an ebook, How to Live a Digital Nomad Life, lots of resources. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you do want to go all in, that ebook is going to provide lots of resources. You can create businesses that you can do from the road if you don't currently have a job, that would allow you to travel like that. So we give you several ideas. We even walk you through like how to create a website, like all of that kinds of stuff. And even talking about, do you choose to live in an RV? Like we thought about that, right? But we decided it wasn't for us. Or, do you do vacation rentals? Do you live out of your car? All of these things. How do you get mail? How do you have residency when you have no home like we do? How do you decide what to pack? All those things. But then when you're on the road, it's like, okay, where do I go? What's going to be a fun place? Well, that's where our destination guides come in handy, because we've already been there. We know the great restaurants. We know the great Airbnbs or hotels, right? We know the amazing fun things that you can do while you're on location working remotely. So, finding that balance between work time and play time is absolutely imperative to really getting the most out of this digital nomad life.
I love that it's a destination guide, but it's also tailored to if you want to live in there for a certain amount of time. Like it's not, I mean, yes, it is. If you want to visit it, great. You've got this too, but I love that it's more, tweaked to that. I think that's unique.
That is. That's really neat.
Thank you.
Yeah.
No, you're absolutely right. We wanted it to be a resource that if somebody's popping in for a weekend, they can go, oh, this sounds cool, rather than filtering through books and pamphlets and websites. It's a one-stop shop. Here's 10, 15 really cool things that we did. We're going to tell you all about it in a quick snapshot. So you could go in for a weekend and have your time filled. But if you're there for a month or 2 months, go ahead and experience all of the stuff that we did.
Yeah.
Right?
I think it's time to get to your fast 5 questions.
I'm excited.
Do you want to start?
I'll start.
Okay.
And number 1, sunrise or sunset?
Sunset. I am not a morning person.
Okay.
Number 2, sea creatures or land creatures?
I'm going to say land creatures. Yellowstone.
Okay. I was going to say Yellowstone must have had a big impact.
Number 3, hiking or rock climbing?
Oh, hands down for me, hiking. I'm an avid hiker. Yeah. Hiking.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, you're definitely in an area right now in Utah that's great for hiking.
Yes. Well, it's why I wanted to come here so much. Yeah. And Glacier, that's my life.
Number 4, dinner or dessert?
Dinner. I do try and stay away from sugars, right? Just for the health of my body, reduction of inflammation, all of that. So I really try and stick with very healthy, nourishing dinners.
Okay.
Very nice. Number 5, National Museum or National Park?
Park. Hands down. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I knew after this conversation she was going to say park.
Right.
Museums in the destination guides. Yeah. I'm all about getting people outside. Nature it is healing. So yeah.
100%.
It is. And I love national parks too.
Yeah. Well, the question we ask everyone, we think is the most important question is, Alise, what does a life well lived mean to you?
Happiness and purpose. I really feel that it is my purpose in life to heal the generational trauma in my family. So I feel that is what I am here to do, and it's why I'm doing the healing work. And that healing work has then allowed me to go on this amazing journey with the intention and hopes of inspiring other people to live their best life. But at the end of the day, I believe that we are here to discover happiness and joy. So many of us believe that it is something that we just wait for and it comes to us. And I will tell you, I waited a damn long time for all the happiness to show up at my door and knock and say that it arrived, and it never did. Yeah. And then it dawned on me that, oh my gosh, you actually create your own joy and your own happiness by following your heart's desire and your life purpose. And so, to me, at the end of my life, if I can say I truly created a life of happiness and joy, and I'm living my life purpose, and I am aligned with everything that makes me happy, then, it will have been a life well lived. But I try that measurement every day, right? It's intentional, creating happiness and joy every day. So that's my thought.
Oh, that's a great answer.
It is a great
really
answer.
Speaks to us. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, this has been so wonderful. Before we part, please tell our audience where they can find you. I know we've talked about the great name several times, but your blog, get in touch, get all of those resources that you talked about. And of course, we're going to link it in the show notes.
Yes, absolutely. talesfromanuntamedsoul.com. And we also have consultation hours. So, if you want to talk to us about how to have this life, how to do this, how to overcome those limiting beliefs that keep so many of us trapped into that daily routine, afraid to step out of that comfort zone, we are here for you. So please do get in touch with us.
Oh, that is wonderful. What a great resource. What a great offer. Alise, thank you so much for being here. This has been a wonderful pleasure for us.
Oh, thank you both so much. And if you're listening and you have not subscribed to this podcast, hit that subscribe button right now.
Oh, thank you.
Wow. Alise was wonderful. She is just such an open person, very transparent, very authentic in what she had to say and share about her journey.
And authentic in a real way. We say authentic a lot, and a lot of people throw around that word, but she really was authentic.
Oh, indeed.
I really, of course, what drew us to them was their whole, her and her husband, their whole story of, traveling, being on the road, going to different, Airbnbs, and, they're just, living this great life. And I think what is wonderful is when, on the outside, these wonderful lives that are, so great, they're not always rainbows and sunshine and flowers and unicorns. There are real issues, just like there is with everybody else. It's just, again, the mindset,
And I agree with all that, with the exception of the unicorns. I think the unicorn is all.
They're always around.
Oh, yeah.
If you're seeing unicorns, we need to talk about that.
That's a whole nother story.
I also really related to her when she was talking about, the pain you hold when you're stressed. And, sometimes you can think that you have something going on, like, oh, my back hurts, or I must have pulled something. And really, it's just the way that the stress and, sitting in there and holding in emotions is so negative for your wellness. It was just so refreshing to have someone talk so openly about it, which so many of our guests do.
They do, yeah. And she was no exception, an open book. And she had some really pretty amazing stories about letting out emotion and bottled up emotion and all that stuff that was just really compelling to hear, to listen to.
Yeah.
So if you enjoyed this conversation, we hope you did. Please share it with someone else you may think will enjoy it. It's a great way of supporting the podcast and us, and we really appreciate it.
We would love that.
You can always find us, links we refer to during the show, and any of the podcast sponsors at arneradventures.com or linked here in these show notes. And until next time, enjoy that journey you're on. We're wishing you lots of adventures.
Adios.
Arrivederci.
Au revoir.
Adios.
Sayonara.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Dos vidaniana.
And a yeon.
Bye.
Bye.